Hi, I'm Ariam, and this is my reading vlog for finishing the Shopaholic series. So one of the things I really want to do is finish the series I'm reading, because I'm currently always reading for the past 2 years or so. I've always been reading between like 65 to 75 series, which is absurd. Now, part of it is because there are a bunch of series or parts of series that I read as a kid, and I didn't realize that they were parts of series, or I couldn't, or it wasn't available to me to get the other books. I knew they were part of series, but I couldn't get the books. And sometimes, obviously, it's like someone puts out one book. And this has been happening in the past few years a lot lately, where an author puts out one book, it gets really popular, and then they decided to make it a series. But I also just have a bunch of series. And the Shopaholic series is something I started in 8th grade, 11 years ago. A long, long time ago. So my mom was reading this when I was in 8th grade, and, I was like 13, 14. I was like, oh, I'm basically an adult now. I have to read adult books. So I picked up what my mom was reading. Now, my mom really does not care about reading series in orders unless she really, 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 really likes the series, which basically means the only series she's read in order is the A.Z. Mystery series. I forgot who it's by, not my thing. But what it means for this is that I also read the Shopaholic series out of order. I wasn't fully aware that it was a series. I thought it was just like interconnected books, and then at some point I realized it was a series. So I read some books, and some books I haven't. And then around 2 years ago, I did this challenge on Goodreads where you have a bunch of genres on, a spinner wheel, and then you spin 5 times, and for the first genre you have to read one book, second genre 2 books, and so on. And for the fifth genre that I spun, I got chick lit. So I'm not a big fan of the fact that there's a genre called chick lit, and I really hate it even more when people start calling it women's fiction. But I decided to read a bunch of Sophie Kinsella books, and I read the first 4 of this series, and then the first one of which I had read, and then the next 3 I hadn't. And then I got tired of, this is a series that repeats itself. So I moved on to a different Sophie Kinsella book, which I really enjoyed, called The Undomestic Goddess. And now I've decided I want to continue this series. So the first 4 books are Confessions of a Shopaholic, which I read in 8th grade and then again 2 years ago. Then Shopaholic Takes Manhattan, which I read for the first time 2 years ago. Shopaholic Facing Up, same, and Shopaholic and Sister, which is the same. And then this book is Shopaholic and Baby, which is what I have out of the library right now. This is the 5th book in the series. The next book is Mini Me, and then I don't remember the rest because the other 2 I read in the series are Shopaholic in 8th grade, are Shopaholic and Baby and Mini Me. Or at least I believe I've read this book. I think I might not have. Yeah, you know what? I think I didn't. I think I only read Confessions of a Shopaholic and Mini Me. So, this series follows Becky, who basically she's a financial writer. She does know stuff about money, but she has a really hard time managing she has an addiction to shopping, basically. They never outright say it, and these are supposed to be like silly little books, but she has an addiction to shopping. And the reason these are categorized as chick lit and not romance is because the main character is a woman, and it's about her life, and it's not just about her falling in love. So she does have a romance. She falls in love in the first book. Then the second book is about like their relationship development. In the third book, they get married, but it's not. Then it starts really focusing a lot on her life. So the fourth book was about meeting her sister, and this one, she'll and her husband will have a baby. I'm guessing. I mean, what else could it be? So the reason that this series can be annoying, and the reason I don't understand why I like it so much, is because they're very repetitive. Becky learns the same lesson in every book, and then the beginning of the next book she forgets it. Like she keeps on learning, like to be responsible and not go overboard with her shopping, and not to lie when she does get into her addiction because it does causes more trouble for her. And then every single time she has forgotten it by like the next book. So that can get annoying when you read them in order. But despite that, I really love Sophie Kinsella's writing. She's very good at she's actually surprisingly good at balancing uh darker things with lighter things. This is a very light series. Like, I'm not saying, like I said, they don't say the word addiction at all and whatever, but it isn't just fluff. Becky, like Becky's falling in love and her whole development of her relationship with the person who is now her husband is very much, there was obviously a lot of thought put into it, and like, and generally all of her relationships are like that. Her relationship with her parents, with her family friends, like her parents' friends, with her best friend, with her best friend's parents. They're all, there's a lot of thought put into them, and they're really well developed. So I guess the reason I like this book, like I said, I like well developed characters, and I really and the, I really like well developed relationships between characters, and this book has a lot of that. So even though it's a light, silly series, I really like it because of that. So I hope I like Shopaholic and Baby. I remember I really liked Mini Me, so and which is like, her daughter's already a toddler. So I really hope I like this one. I do not actually really like babies in real life. Shopaholic and Baby, which is the first book to finish for me. The next one is Mini Shopaholic. Hopefully I will read it. So this one, she doesn't have the baby until like the very end. I think it's like the second to last chapter. I mean, well, she has the baby over like 2 chapters, but I think it's only the last chapter that the baby actually exists. But this one, so it took me a bit to get into it for 2 reasons. One of which is not the book's fault, which is that I just had DNF'd a very serious book, and even though I didn't enjoy it, it was kind of a shock to like go from a very serious book to this one, which is not serious at all. The other one is that it does start with like the same old stuff, but it does change. So one thing I really liked about the series, I don't remember if I mentioned it, is I really like how well the relationships are done. Like, I like the thing is about the series, it's not just like a silly little series. I mean, it is, but the character relationships in the series are really explored, which I really like. And this one is a bit different. So, in this one, basically, Becky, our main character, is having a baby. She's pregnant, and she's very excited about it, but suddenly she hears about this really awesome obstetrician that all the celebrities are going to. And she starts going to her, and she discovers that she's her husband's ex-girlfriend. Now, she gets over that really quickly. Like, her husband reassures her, it's like nothing, whatever. But then weird things start to happen. Like, her husband, like, the obstetrician, like, seems to, like, almost be making it a point to humiliate her. And at the same time, her husband is hiding things from her. So it's a kind of classic, like, is my husband cheating on me trope. So I did enjoy this book less than some of the other books because it is that classic, is my husband cheating on me trope. But I did like how it was kind of addressed, like, both her thoughts on it and her thoughts about who her husband is and who she is, and her friends' thoughts and her family thoughts. And also, I really liked how the characters work together. So at this point, we didn't meet any new characters besides the obstetrician, and I don't really, and some other awful people, but we do have like all the people in Becky's life, like the people that she loves. We have obviously her, we have her husband, we have her best friend and her best friend's husband, we have her parents' best friends, her half sister, and I just really liked how you could see them all, just how they all work together, how they all, like, obviously they're all very different people, but they're still like in the same world, and that's just so realistic and also at the same time lovely. So, well, this isn't my favorite book of the Shopaholic series. I did enjoy it, and I definitely hope to continue on with the series, especially because I remember the next one I also quite liked, though it also was not my favorite. Shopaholic vlog, because I might be starting mini Shopaholic this Shabbos. I might not. For one thing, I have 140 pages left of the other book I'm reading. For number two, I need to sleep a lot this Shabbos because Eurovision is tomorrow night. And for three, there might be other reasons that would keep me from reading Mini Shopaholic. Good and bad. So, but anyways, I might start Mini Shopaholic this Shabbos. And this is one that I have read. I read this in 8th grade for the first time, and I remember enjoying it, but it not being my favorite. So I'm just going to read the summary to you because I read this over 10 years ago, and I need to read the summary to you. Shopaholic Becky Brandon, nee Bloomwood's 2-year-old is spirited. She knows what she wants, whether it's a grown-up Prada handbag or a toy pony, 40% off, so a bargain, surely? When yet another shopping trip turns to mayhem, Becky decides it's time to give Minnie her own pocket money. Is it a bad sign when Minnie goes instantly overdrawn? Minnie isn't the only one in financial crisis. As the Bank of London collapses, people are having to cut back. Everyone ain't cheering up, so what better way to do it than to throw a fabulous surprise party? A thrifty party, of course, except economizing and keeping it a secret have never been Becky's strong points. Right, first of all, I want to see when it's published. From the fact that it says the Bank of London collapsing, maybe 2008, 2009, 2010. I want to see. The 2010. First published 2010 in Great Britain by Bantam Press. Like, I assume that at the end of this book, Becky's going to be like, that Becky's going to, I assume that throughout this book, Becky's going to learn how to connect with her daughter. That's in ways that are not only through shopping. She's always going to continue shopping. She's Becky, and it's something that she really enjoys doing. It honestly is a hobby for her, and it's a way that she genuinely connects with people. The way that she first met her husband, is that spoilers? Not enough to, I don't think you can tell how it happens until you read the first book. So anyways, and it's very obvious from the first book because she's going to end up in. Anyways, so, but I think it's going to be a fun Becky Brandon nee Bloomwood book where she makes a lot of mistakes. Her mom is definitely going to be here if there's a thrifty party. Her sister, her friend. I just think it's going to be a fun time. Now I have to restart this video. Apparently this camera does not work like my old computer's camera, and it does not continue if I go look up stuff on the internet while I'm talking. Okay, but, guess what I read? So I was wrong. I did have 140 pages left of the book I was reading before, 102 pages left. I don't know why I said 140. I think because when I started, I finished the last Shopaholic book, and then I read 140 pages of that book, and now I read the last 102 pages of that book, and I read the next Shopaholic book. So this is not what I thought it was going to be about. Also, it was kind of ahead of its time, not in the normal way we say ahead of its time, but it was written in 2010, and it takes place in 2005, and there are, things in here that were slightly ahead of the technology of 2005. Like, YouTube is a very big thing, and I just checked, and YouTube only came out in beta in April 2005, and this takes place in April 2005, so it doesn't really make sense. And they have photos in their phone, which I don't think was a thing in 2005. I was a little kid in 2005, so I cannot remember, but I don't think that was a thing in 2005, so that kind of annoyed my sense of realism. But it's also crazy to think about because why did she get mixed up? Because technically 5 years, this was published in 2010, it takes place in 2005. 5 years is not that much. I mean, and probably she was also writing it in 2009, which makes it 4 years, and 4 years is not that much. But technology just leaped ahead. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. I remember in like 2012, all my friends were getting like iPods and stuff for their bat mitzvahs, and like 3 years later, it was obsolete because you could listen to everything on your phone. It's just crazy. Anyways, so this had its ups and downs. The first half was definitely even slightly more than the first half. Maybe the first like I don't know, 3/4? No, I don't know. The first 5/8, let's say, were not my favorite of the Shopaholic series. I felt that there was definitely some sexism that wasn't taken apart in how she talked about. I can't say it without spoilers, so let me try to think of what to say. There were just some sexism in here that was like the author was obviously like not really thinking of how it would come across, kind of implying that all women, except for her sister, are basically want to shop for new clothes and their husbands don't like it and they kind of have to hide it from their husbands. It was definitely weird and I did not enjoy that at all. However, the last 3/8 of the books, I was like, I was alternately stressed out and excited, and sometimes both at the same time. I don't know how Sophie Kinsella does it, but she can make me so stressed out. Maybe because I don't read a lot of adult realistic fiction, and so usually the characters I read encounter are either like there are spies spying on us and we have to go defeat them with dragons or something, or I got a bad grade at school, my teacher doesn't like me. And these are, like problems like a recession and all the problems that come along with that. I'm not used to reading them in books, and maybe it's a bit too realistic, but I don't know. Sophie Kinsella knows how to stress me out, but I love it. I had to stop reading a few times and get up and walk around just because I was so stressed out because of this book, but it just goes to show that Sophie Kinsella is a good writer. So what was this book about? Because I said it wasn't about what I thought it was about. So basically, we have our main character, Becky, and it's been 2.5 years since the end of the last book, so her daughter is now 2.5 years old. And she's just like, and so we have part of the book is her worrying, everyone's saying her daughter's spoiled, and her worrying about that. Part of it is, there's a realistic fiction books, there's not really any plot. It's kind of like a Ramona Quimby, but for adults. And part of it is her husband and her are trying to find a house, but every time they do, it falls through. And then part of it is a recession and all the problems that come along with that. And her husband, Luke, has had a really bad year. And the main plot of this book, which comes across more in the last 3/8, which is probably why I like the last 3/8 more, is her husband Luke has had a really bad year, so she wants to throw him a surprise party on his birthday. So she organizes this whole surprise party, and she's really determined to do it alone, and it's really hard, and she's like, this is not a small surprise party where like her family and everything is going to be in the house. It is a huge undertaking, and yeah, I really enjoyed the organizing surprise party part. And of course, she makes another new friend while organizing the surprise party, and I actually liked, more than developing friendship, I actually liked Luke's reaction to it at the end more, because it was just like, these two characters know each other so well, and I love how they react to each other. what I don't love is that Luke is still trying to keep secrets from her, and it's super annoying and annoys her too. And she's like, and she tells him, "You don't need to protect me. I'm your wife," and he's still keeping secrets from her, and it's super annoying. And probably also like another thing of sexism that Sophie Kinsella didn't really work out in this book. So this was not my favorite Shopaholic book. Maybe 3.5 stars, I would say, if I really rated this. But I really like the end. And, oh my god, and I cannot explain enough. What I said about it being Ramona Quimby for adults, I think is true. Yes, these books are silly, but they have character depth. They have genuine character relationships. The relationship, I cannot say anything without spoilers, but her husband grew up with a stepmom because her stepmom was his real mom, but his birth mom abandoned him, and he's had a very rocky relationship with her, and she is not good at all at relationships. She's not good at all at saying what she means and coming across as anything other than an awful person. And just the way that she and Becky's relationship was written in this book, and also her relationship with Minnie, Becky's daughter, it was so well done. I loved it. That was amazing. It was so good. So yeah, like I was saying, these are like Ramona Quimby for adults. They're silly. They have they're kind of over the top sometimes. You have this very feisty character, and that gets in trouble a lot because of her feistiness, and yet people also love her for her feistiness because that's who she is. And at the same time, you have character depth, you have relationship depth, you have problems that are very real to life, and you can really understand what the character is going through, even if at the same time you're being like, you would not have gone into this if you weren't so impulsive, and in Becky's case, kind of dumb. She is kind of dumb. Ramona isn't. Becky is kind of dumb, but you still love her. You still gotta love her. Well, at least I have to. So yeah, I'm really excited to read the next book. Hopefully I get to it soon. Okay, hello. What is going on with the color in this? I have no idea. Let's try to turn on a light and see if that will help, but I think it's the camera. Okay, apparently it was the lighting, even though it's pretty bright out, so I don't know what it was. But anyways, I finished all of Shopaholic to the stars today, and I'm disappointed. I did enjoy this book. Maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I hadn't read it in under 24 hours. It is pretty book to read in under 24 hours, but I believe this is my least favorite of the Shopaholic series. So this was published in 2014, and if I remember correctly, the last book was published in 2007, and that one was set in 2004. So this was published 7 years later, after the last book was set. Which is kind of odd, because the last book had obviously had set up this book to be published next. So, as I said, she goes to LA for her husband's business, and basically she tries to set up herself as a Hollywood stylist for these stars. And yeah, there were a few things in this that made me not enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the other books. So one of the things that was expected, because these are how these books go, was that, she didn't really learn from the last book. But it wasn't really strong, and it didn't super bother me. So yeah, that was just like it was there for a second, and then it was gone, but it didn't really bother me. I guess the main thing that bothered me was that there were two things. One, there were too many things going on in this book. And two, there were a lot of little things that were annoying me. So I know these books are not perfect by any means, but usually the things that annoy me, they're little things, and there are very few of them. And I felt like this book had a ton of little things that annoyed me, and I guess that's why it disappointed me. So let's start by talking about the things I didn't like, and then we can move to the things I did like. So one of the things I didn't like, and And this one, I'm putting it first because I know it's a very personal one for me, and a lot of people would not be bothered by it. So there's a celebrity character who appears in the book before this, and she she is seen as a very rational human being. And in this book, she becomes like this crazy person that basically, like, super childish, acting like she's like two, basically. And it was very much obvious, like, they changed it for the plot. And in the last book, she had a very bit part. She didn't actually appear at all. We only heard her. She talked on the phone once with Becky, and that's all. So I could ignore it, but it is one of those things that bother me. Like, I am very much a person who's like, oh, there's an inconsistency. I'll notice that. Like, I really, really notice inconsistencies, even in very small things. And this is more than a small thing because, after all, she was a character. So I know a lot of people wouldn't bother that they took a big character and they changed her personality to make it fit. For me personally, that's really bothersome. But overall, I feel like the thing, like I said, that really bothered me, and there was just so much happening in this book that I just felt like I didn't really know what was going on. Like, we have Becky trying to become a stylist, and then we have Luke being overwhelmed by celebrity. Her husband, Luke is her husband, and then we have Luke, her husband, being overwhelmed by everything that's happening, and we have this enemy of Becky appearing, and we have Becky trying to repair the relationship between her husband and his estranged mother, and we have Becky's best friend's husband getting into a cult, and like, there was so much happening. So even though this book is like 100 pages longer than the other stuff, 50 to 100 pages longer than the other Shopaholic books, there was so much happening that I just felt breathless while reading it. I was like, I can't even like condemn Becky for anything that's happening here because she's acting incredibly confused, and and while it was annoying and she was acting annoying, I was like, yeah, I understand it. I don't know what's happening either. I do not know what's happening either. So yeah, I felt that's basically why I didn't why I didn't like this book as much. I feel like there was too much going on. Now for the things that I did like about this book, because I still did enjoy this book. I didn't hate it. I'm still absolutely planning to read the next Shopaholic book. I liked this book. I enjoyed it, but it was just, it's my least favorite Shopaholic book. So what I did like about this book is Becky's daughter. I really liked Becky's daughter. So she's 2 years old because, well, this book was published 7 years later. It's been like a month since the last book. And and there's stuff going on with Becky's dad too. It's a whole thing. But back to the stuff I did like. While she wasn't a big part of this book, she did appear as she's a regular part of our main character's life, and she appeared in that way. I just really enjoyed her. She was acting like a 2-year-old. She wasn't doing anything special, and that's exactly what I liked. She was just being a 2-year-old. And I did enjoy, actually, kind of weird to say, but I did enjoy the way that all of this communication in this book, I think it actually made a lot of sense. Like, while I didn't enjoy reading it because miscommunication is not like a thing that I love to read, I thought it was done well in that everything made sense of like why people were reacting the way they were. And when I say miscommunication, I am not talking only about like people lying or leaving things out. I'm talking about people trying to explain stuff to each other and coming from such different thoughts. Like I said, a lot of stuff was going on in this book. So these people are experiencing totally different things in their lives. So when they're trying to explain stuff to each other, it makes sense that even if they're honestly trying to tell the truth, stuff is just not getting through. And I did like that part a lot of like how like you can see that, of course, Becky does lie in this book, and hide the truth and stuff, but how you can see that miscommunication come from a place of truth. And even for people who know each other really well, and that was a thing. Like, Becky was reading correctly the emotions of her husband and the emotions of her best friend, but she couldn't tell where they were coming from. And they were also reading her emotions correctly, but they couldn't tell where she was coming from. And it was just a whole mess. And I thought also that while the cult was not a huge part in here, I could tell very early on that way before Becky noticed, that this was going to be a cult thing. So I am hopeful that in the next book, because this plot is continuing to the next book, most of these, until now, the books have all been like contained plots, but this one has a plot continuing to the next book. So I am hoping that she's going to continue to do it well and be like realistic about what a cult is. So now that we've talked about Shopaholic to the Stars, let's move to the next book, which is also the last book so far in the Shopaholic series, and which continues the plot. So, as I said, until now, the Shopaholic books have been self-contained plots, but Shopaholic to the Stars continues its plot in Shopaholic to the Rescue, so I can't say too much about it. But basically, Sophie, gosh, I always get mixed up. I always call Becky Sophie at least once. The only thing that makes me feel better is that Sophie Kinsella is not this author's real name. Her real name is Madeleine Wickham, I think. So Becky, Luke, and Suze, Luke is her husband, Suze is her best friend, have to go on a road trip to Las Vegas to rescue. They're not sure what. They're not sure what is happening, but they have to go rescue people who I can tell you exactly who they are. But they have to go rescue people. They're not even sure from what. And I'm sure that's just going to be a mess, a balagan. And everything is going to be a mess in the middle, and then it will all turn out fine in the end. So yeah, I'm still excited for this. And I think that now that we've left the Hollywood plot behind, I'm definitely, and Becky's other best friend, Danny, is also coming. But I think that since we've left now the Hollywood plot behind, I am very much hopeful that it will kind of calm down and we won't have so much going on so that the book will be better and won't be as crazy as it was. Like, it'll be crazy in the good way that the Shopaholic books are, and not crazy in, oh my god, there's so much plot going on that you feel like you can't breathe. Okay, so July 27th, and yesterday I read up to chapter 10, which is 132 pages of Shopaholic to the Rescue. First, I want to mention, I was wrong. This is not the last book in the series. There is another book, Christmas Shopaholic, which came out, which, by the way, is stained edges. Fun. Came out, peppermint, I guess, in 2019, which is 6 years ago. But yeah, that's after I finished high school. So Shopaholic to the Rescue, though. So as I mentioned, this continues the plot of Shopaholic to the Stars, and I'm not going to say any more about that because I don't remember exactly what I said. I don't want to give any spoilers by accident, but I will say my thoughts so far on Shopaholic to the Rescue. So it's interesting. Not in a bad way, not in a good way, in a neutral way. It is interesting because we have some character dynamics that are developed in Shopaholic to the Stars, and suddenly in Shopaholic to the Rescue, they're kind of turned on their heads. Except the thing is, I trust Sophie Kinsella, and I trust that she'll have a good reason. And they weren't totally turned on their heads. It wasn't like, at least one of them wasn't like, oh my god, it's a total surprise. Or multiple of them even. It wasn't like, it's a total surprise. It could make sense with the character. So I'm just interested to see where it goes and why exactly that's happening. And also, in general, there is a mystery in here. We want to know why Becky's dad is doing what he's doing, why Becky was named Rebecca, who are Becky's dad's friends, and we're on a road trip to figure out this mystery, and it's really interesting. It's exciting. And we have character dynamics also that are developing that were expected, and I'm also enjoying them, specifically with Eleanor. And it's kind of interesting because Becky is finally maturing in this book. You know, I think she meant this to be the last book. So, don't know what's going to happen with Christmas Shopaholic. But Becky is really taking responsibility for her actions in a way, and in every book, like, she's learned a lesson, and some of those lessons have been taking responsibility for her actions, but she's really taking responsibility for her actions now in a way that we can see is probably more long lasting. It's not just a lesson learned, it's also a lesson that has stayed, you know? And so I'm very interested in that regard. Like, we can already see how it affects her relationship with Luke. And Luke is such a good husband, okay? He's so supportive. But I am interested to see how it affects her relationship with her two friends, Suze, who has been steadily maturing, and Danny, who is not mature at all. So, yeah, I have the feeling that she's just going to go further apart from Danny. Like, she's been having some relationship troubles with Suze, and Danny says to her, you know, sometimes relationships end, it's okay. And I think that at the end of this book, she and Suze are going to be even better friends because Becky has finally matured and kind of caught up to the level Suze is on, but that she's going to grow apart from Danny because he's just not mature. Like, it's not like she will hate him or anything. They'll just be farther apart. So, back to speaking about the book. Oh, and another thing I've been enjoying is seeing her relationship with Minnie. Her daughter, it's like, she's always loved her daughter, but she's really growing into her own as a parent now, and it's great to see. It's so fun to see. So yeah, I'm enjoying it so far, and I'm really excited to see where the mystery is going to go and what all is going to happen to all of these character dynamics, and if my prediction about her relationships with Suze and Danny are true. Well, so it is August 5th, and things did not go exactly how I planned, because on Shabbat I finished Shopaholic to the rescue. And then I started Christmas Shopaholic. That was planned. What didn't go to plan was that I gave Shopaholic to the rescue back to the library today, so I don't have it here to hold up. I mean, that's not a major problem, but okay. And now the thing about this update is that it's going to be very confusing because like I said, I finished Shopaholic to the rescue on Shabbat. I did read a very short book in between. I played a few games. And then I started Christmas Shopaholic. And I generally do not continue series right after I just read the last book in the series because I get confused. I get mixed up what happens in each book. And that definitely happened now. So I'm going to try my best to talk about what happened in Shopaholic to the rescue, especially because there are major spoilers in there. But I might get confused. So, Shopaholic to the rescue, where did I leave you? We had a mystery, we had a road trip in America, and we had some character development of Becky. So, I ended up I did like, in the end, where that character development went, but it definitely wasn't what I expected, but I did like it. I think Shopaholic to the Rescue was my second favorite series in the whole series after Confessions of a Shopaholic, the first book. So that's awesome. Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was so fun. Like, we had all of these little, like, besides the character development of Becky, and also I love seeing her grow into being a mom these past few books. But besides that, we had all these fun stuff. Like, I can't say any of them because it would be spoilers, but there was so many fun stuff in here just for the plot. And I love the mystery. Like, it was just it was keeping me on my seat, but it wasn't so dragged out that it was annoying me. It was nearly so dragged out it was annoying me, but it wasn't there, and that is awesome. Okay, then Christmas Shopaholic. I got to page 136 of Christmas Shopaholic. So this is the latest book, maybe the last. It was put out in 2019, so 6 years ago, 5.5. And, ooh, what's under? Oh, Just Light. 2019, they still didn't have, does have this. I love the design of this book. I don't think I said that. Did I? I don't know. I love the design of this book. So this one, we're following Becky. Her parents have just moved house, so they ask her to host Christmas. And she's super anxious about it. She just wants everything to be perfect for everyone. And they're having a lot of different people, So she's super stressed out about it. And like most of these books, the last two books being an exception, this doesn't really follow a specific plot. Like, that's the summary, and it is a lot of what's happening in this book, but that's the only thing, it's just about, these are slice of life books for the most part, except for last book and a half, but these are this is a slice of life series, so we're just following Becky in her life, what's her and her work, her with her daughter and her daughter's preschool. She's making a new friend with another mom who's not having a good time at all in her life at her daughter's preschool. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. I am kind of disappointed that after the last book we went straight back to Becky buys everything, but I did find her description of online shopping very funny. And I am very curious about this new friendship that she's making. And also, I like to see her in her work. I always love to see Becky working in these books because she's so awesome at it. And it's just so fun to see her being awesome at her jobs in very unconventional ways. So that's my update, and probably I will update you when I finish Christmas Shopaholic. Okay, it is July 8th. I just finished reading Christmas Shopaholic, the last Shopaholic book that's out so far. And listen, would I be happy if she put out another Shopaholic book? Yes. Would I read it if it got to the library? Yes. But this actually, I felt really wrapped up well. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there were some things that had been opened in the other Shopaholic books that had never been closed that were closed in this book. So I do think this is going to be the last book. And yeah, it was fun. Now look, it was probably my third favorite. There were a bit too many things happening here. Like there were a bunch of different plot points, and it felt overwhelming. At the same time, it makes sense because the whole plot of this book is that she needs to host Christmas and she's overwhelmed. So it actually fit with the overwhelming feeling, actually really fit with the book. So I actually liked it in the end. But yeah, there were some parts where it was like, oh wow, we went back to that plot point. I've already forgot about that plot point by this point. So it was a little too much. Yeah, but I really like this book overall. Again, something silly about these books is that that because she had these gaps between the books, the technology jumps ahead. So when Becky's daughter is born, they barely have the first iPads. And now they're all WhatsApping each other. I love the WhatsApp parts though, because it just felt so realistic and part of our day. And yeah, and I also thought it was very satisfying seeing, I know I mentioned worrying about this, but in the last book that I worried that Becky's character development would go away, and it didn't. which I think shows that Sophie Kinsella became a better writer, because genuinely in the first books in this series, when she was still writing in the noughts, Becky's character was like, she learned her lesson and then she went back into the same thing, you know? And these books that are written in the 2010s, she does grow up and she does learn. And that was one of the things I loved about this book, is seeing Becky still being Becky and yet being more grown up and having and being less selfish, like true, and relying more on her friends, like truly having learned those lessons that she had been learning all throughout the series. Thank you, Sophie Kinsella. I love Sophie Kinsella's books. And maybe I might check out her Madeline Wickham books, which is Sophie Kinsella is her pen name, I believe. I don't know if Madeline Wickham is another pen name or it's her real name, but either way, I think I might check them out. Even though I'm nervous too, because they are her earlier books, I believe. But anyways, this is the end of this vlog, unless like she comes out with a new book tomorrow. Hey, so it is now December 13th, and I just learned yesterday that Sophie Kinsella passed away around a week ago. And I had one short story left in this. So after I closed out this vlog, I discovered that there was a short story about their honeymoon that takes place between Shopaholic Taizena and Shopaholic and Sister. And it was a free short story to download from Amazon, so I downloaded it. And I just never like found a place where I was like, oh, I want to read this. Like, this is, I don't know why, because I did want to read it. Yeah, so I decided to read it now because, yeah, it was kind of weird now because, like, also it's weird, like, when, like, an author dies, like, I'm not actually sad because Sophie Kinsella, the person, is dead. I'm sad because Sophie Kinsella, the author, is dead, and she's never going to write more funny books for me, so it's this very, very selfish reason to be sad, um, even more so than generally. Um, I do think that she seems to have been a person who just wanted to bring joy to the world, and I think that's a good thing. Um, yeah, but obviously, yeah, I did not know her at all. Only read her books. And now about Shopaholic and Honeymoons. This is a short story, 22 pages, and I quite enjoyed it. It was a bit of funny in the beginning because as I said, I had already gotten to Christmas Shopaholic, where we do have actual character development from Becky in those last three books. And then Shopaholic and Honeymoon, we're back in, like, where she doesn't really have that much character development. Funnily enough, we did get some character development from Luke in this story. So that was fun, and it did make me laugh out loud at some points. Yeah, and yeah, so I finished the Shopaholic series. I'm never going to read it for any of the books in here for the first time again. Um, yeah, this is the wrap up on the Shopaholic vlog. And that is it, folks.